Hey, this is the World Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is why communism will never work. So, when it comes to communism, and not just communism, the ideology, but communism in terms of actually how it's been implemented throughout the numerous different nations throughout history, you know, from the early 20th century even till now, one thing you tend to realize about all nations that are communists is that they always fail. Every single one of them always fails in one way or the other. And the biggest thing communist supporters always tend to say is that, well, they didn't do it right. They didn't do communism right. They did it wrong, and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada, blah 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 blah. The stuff you've heard a million times if you follow this particular topic, okay? And when it comes to this particular issue, I want to discuss why communism never works and never will work for that matter. So anyway, now that I've mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the topic of why communism will never work, it simply comes down to the fundamental principles of how communism is supposed to be done. As even aside from some of the other subtle elements of communism, the truth of the matter is for communism, they have this way of thinking for communism, which is the main thing that makes communism, is the idea that things like social hierarchies are bad, as well as the idea that materialism is evil and people should only live simply for basic conveniences and should not live for wanting more in life, and so on and so forth. Whether it could be expensive cars, jewelry, and so on and so forth, they should just simply live for basic amenities such as food, beverages, and so on and so forth. That's the main philosophy of communism at its fundamental core, okay? And when it comes to those two things, the simple problem with that simple reason is simply down to just simply using your head, let alone critical thinking for that matter. And the first thing that's obviously the problem with that way of thinking is the simple fact that hierarchies, the idea of if I do this and I do that, I'll go up higher, is how human beings, or for that matter, human societies become more advanced. As that way of thinking that I want more, I want more, I want more, is actually what leads innovation. As the more obviously you have a desire to reach the top, you're going to obviously have a greater desire to work harder, and whether it's based on your personal gain or not, it will lead to greater innovation. Such as, for example, if somebody wants to become famous and rich, successful for that matter, they might decide, okay, to become famous and rich, I'm going to come up with this great idea that will obviously be something that people need. Like, for example, maybe someone might come up with an idea for like a more effective car that doesn't have to use fossil fuels, okay? Which even if his personal gain is his personal motivation for that matter is shallow, it obviously benefits everyone around us, because obviously we are being massively affected by global warming. Global warming is affecting our planet, and the truth of the matter is we need electric cars, okay? So obviously in a world like that, a capitalist society, people are going to be motivated to that. In a communist society, who wants to go higher, it's evil, then people are not going to be as motivated to do that, okay? So that's just down to common sense. So that's the first point, okay? Social hierarchies encourage people, to the idea of going higher on a social hierarchy, like in other words, just becoming rich as possible, encourages innovation and so on and so forth. So that's the first point, okay? The second point, obviously to go alongside that, is simply due to the fact that when it comes to simply the idea of we just simply live for basic amenities, whether it comes to things like just for basic food, basic beverages, basic needs like clothing and stuff, the biggest problem with that way of thinking, okay, that we shouldn't want more, because the more we want more, we're going to be more miserable, and the more society's going to become corrupt, blah 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 blah. Capitalism is evil because it improves materialism and so on and so forth, instead of stuff we really need. The same shallow shit you hear all the time. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to that particular topic alone, the biggest problem with that particular topic is truth of the matter is, if we have a society where people like obviously just live for basic amenities and do not live because they want more, you know, whether or not it actually is something people are going to be using forever is not what matters, okay? It creates experiences. And through experiences, it creates memories. And even if you might lose that thing, those memories are priceless. People don't forget about that. And that's what everyone gets wrong about materialism. Like, what I need all these things in my room and this and that. And the point is not, oh, I'm going to use it forever. And the point of the matter is more like I create good memories that I can obviously look back to and say, oh, I remember those days, and so on and so forth. I remember that. That's when I was in high school, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's the truth about materialism, is that it builds great memories. And through building those great memories, it generates a lot of money. Okay, it generates a bunch of money, for that matter. Okay, because obviously the more you and materialism, you can generate more money. Like, you're not going to tell me you're going to get someone, for example, to pay like a few $100s for food, okay? Especially a middle class person, for that matter, or for basic amenities. But you can definitely get someone to pay a few $100s for something like a video game system, or something like, maybe something like, for example, you know, an emblem or some item they want to put in their house because it looks really cool to them. Okay, let alone when it comes to things like cars. Okay, you're not going to get someone to pay tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands for a very generic basic car. But if it's a very effective car, do you really need it? No. But at the same time, the truth of the matter is that for someone who wants it, you know, like a very expensive sports car and stuff, it generates a lot of money. And through generating a lot of money, it has a lot of benefits, okay? As the truth of the matter is, you can obviously, the more money you get, obviously you have more tax money, and the more tax money you get, you can apply things to basic amenities to make lives of everyday people better, you know, for that matter, okay? Like, for example, we need to build more hospitals, we need to build more roads, we need to improve basic infrastructure. It's down to common sense, okay? For that matter, which clearly a lot of people are not using their head for this particular issue. So materialism does have a purpose, okay? You know, it generates a lot of money that people can use for a lot of things, because obviously there's something known as taxes, which obviously a lot of these people don't take into consideration. So it doesn't matter whether you personally like it or not, that's your personal choice, but materialism does have a role as it helps fuel the economy. So that's something else I want to mention. Now, when it comes to the second main reason why communism will never work, is just simply down to the fact that communism is too freaking hard to understand. Capitalism has existed for thousands of years, in some way, shape, or form. You know, whether it fits our modern day definition of capitalism as we know it today, that was invented by Europeans, just like a lot of things invented by particular Northern European nations. A lot of it is just simply built up, developed versions of ideas that already existed. The truth of the matter is, capitalism has existed for thousands of years, okay? And of course, since it existed for so long, there's a lot of lessons and so on and so forth we've learned from it, okay? And it's in general, fundamentally, it's just easier to understand. You know, it just comes down to the idea, okay, if I have this, or the society for that matter, I will try to generate as much money as possible, okay? Communism is not like that. It's very hard to understand. And the truth of the matter is, why do you want to work on building up something that has an ideology and a mindset that's only existed for 100+ years versus something that's existed for thousands of years? Okay, that's the biggest problem with these people, that they don't seem to understand. Why do you have to go through all that effort to build something that not only has existed for 100 years, so there's obviously limited lessons and knowledge, as well as the fact that every single time they've tried it, it's failed anyway, versus something that's existed for thousands of years, so there's so many lessons and knowledge we can use that we can apply to our modern-day world, like capitalism. So this whole idea that communism is evil and communism is evil and this and that is just stupid. Or, well, I'm not communist, I mean capitalism, but you get the point. Like, this whole idea, capitalism is evil just doesn't make any sense. Just stick with what you know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's all you have to say in the end of the day. All that matters in the end of the day is that obviously we take better anti-corruption measures. And at the end of the day, that's it. That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to make it come up with some freaking dramatic ideology or anything like that. Just come with a better, simply economic system when it comes to the way it handles money and corruption. So anyway, this is my video. I hope it enlightened people. Anyway, if you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumb this video up and the subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is all I have to say. And simply put it, later.